There's 3 hypercritical super important steps when it comes to building a project like Brupeg. Step 1, build the boat. Step 2, launch the boat. Nailed that one. Step 3, start the engine so you can leave the dock. Let's work on that one today. Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that was stripped out and ready for the scrapyard. She's just completed a 10-year rebuild that's brought her back to life. With the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and subscribers, she'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below. The guys are organising the batteries, so we're going from 12 volt to 24 volt, so they're gluing those together to actually make the starter work.
Yeah, so we had the bottom battery just running 12 volts so we could do some testing with the starter motor and the alternator. Now we're putting these two in series to get our 24 volts. So we're just reconfiguring the wiring to do that, and we can actually start testing the alternator. With any luck we can put the drill on the alternator and start to see at least some functionality happening there.
The guys have found that the terminals inside the actual switch itself are all sloppy and gross, so we think that switch is dead, so we're going to get a new one. But the guys have put the terminal post fuse on. We haven't hooked the alternator up yet, but the wiring and everything is done for that. What do we got? So 12.9 in that battery and 25.8 across the two.
Pushing 26.
Yep.
On. Yep.
So the switch is on, so we should be, if that switch is okay, we should be seeing some voltage at the starter. We can't hear the electricity, so it's always the first check.
Yeah, the sparks are in.
Yep.
Not sure which is positive or negative, but it won't matter. It's just
What
a
do we
sign.
got? 25.7. Hey!
Oh, it's minus. It's
Yep.
back to front.
Yeah, oh, this motor runs backwards anyway.
Is this a southern hemisphere thing all over again?
Well, it's a northern hemisphere motor running in the southern hemisphere.
Oh, that'll do.
So you either mount them upside down or you run them backwards.
We have to put the boat upside down in the water.
like one of those lifeboats. That's how they work.
Yeah, that's one.
In the engine room, the guys are solving the last of the alternator charging. Ooh.
Oh.
Oscilloscope. So the guys are spinning the alternator with the drill, like this. And then that's showing.
So that's the AC pickup coming off the alternator. So that's telling us our revs per minute. So you can see that as Björk changes the drill, spinning the alternator at a different speed, the voltage is going up, but the main thing is you can see the waveform stretching. So it's the frequency of these cycles or the period of these cycles, that's what the tachometer is looking for. We were getting, when it's got a decent speed, about 6 volts, and that's good enough for the tacho to pick up, the NMEA interface box. So looking good.
Awesome. With the alternator sorted, it's time to move on to fuel piping, see if we can get some fuel up to the main engine. I'm going to go through and get all our fuel piping and brackets and other bits and pieces needed, because the goal is start the engine this week. Putting the gearbox oil system together. So I've put a ball valve on the sump bung, mainly so that we can then hook our lines etc. up after that, but it's also a pain in the neck to get the sump bung out and not put oil everywhere. So by having this ball valve in here, we can hook a line on the end here and then pull the oil from that point. It also makes it slightly lower than the rest of the sump, which is nice. Now this pipe here, we were going to have this filter mounted here and doing a U-turn and heading off to the keel cooling, but a number of people have said don't do that, spin it around the other way and put it on the outside, on the output of the keel cooling. So that's what I'm going to do. Now what that means, I need to get this pipe shortened and I need to make a bit of a U-turn down here from this pipe down into this fitting here, but I also need to change this because this pipe is touching on that steel rib just there, which absolutely won't do. That'll rub through and destroy itself. So I'm going to get a 45 on that fitting there so we can come up on a slight angle and clear all of that stuff there. But I need to also make a bracket for the filter. I'm going to mount it over here somewhere, probably on the engine I think, come up to the filter and then from the filter across over to here. So there's a wee bit more pipe work to do, more than I thought there was going to be. I'm thinking I'll mount it on the end of the bell housing here like that, something out like so, and then this pipe will do a bit of a dog leg U-turn sort of thing like that, so it doesn't touch anything. The bends are reasonable, it's not too tight on the pipe or anything like that. That'll dog leg into the filter here, and then on this side we'll have a pipe that just does a U-turn and down onto that, so it'll come out and do a U-turn in fittings and then pretty much do a nice smooth run down to the keel cooling outlet of the keel cooling system. I agree with the people that commented that I needed to move the filter from over there. There is a filter. So my thinking originally was there is a filter up there on top of the engine, and I was thinking I've got one coming out of the pump, so it goes sump, then pump, and then normally there's no filter in the system, so I'm adding something. So it goes sump, pump, then my filter, keel cooling, this filter, and then gearbox. But what we're going to do now is sump, pump, straight through the keel cooling, and then we're going to have primary filter, secondary filter, gearbox. So we need to organise a template. So we're starting a bit of a cardboard template for our oil filter here. So I reckon that's going to be easy to service there too, because I can get a bowl or something underneath it pretty easily. There we have it, finished product for our template. So cut those holes up there. That's going to give us the mounting point for the filter. We need to cut a couple of holes in this back end. I haven't marked them on the cardboard, but we need to basically create a little gusset. The filter sits just in front of that, and the reason the filter sticks out so far is because of this bump on the bell housing. So this is a secondary bump for having a starter motor on this side. We want to have two ways to start Brupeg, and we would have loved to have machined out that second housing port for a second starter motor, so we can have an electric on one side and an air start on the other, or we can have air start on one side, spring start, which is our preferred method overall. That means that we can manually start the engine if there's absolutely no power, no compressor, no ability whatsoever. So a spring starter is really old technology, but really reliable and pretty cool. You basically crank it up with a handle, you wind it up and you wind it up and you wind it up, and then you hit the lever and a spring just fires the engine over and it starts that way. Air start being our primary, spring start being our secondary backup. The reason we didn't machine it out, it was another $700 to machine it at the time, and money was tight when we were just getting the engine rebuilt and everything. We were running on fumes when it came to funding and everything, so we decided let's leave that. It's always something we can do later, but it is a pain. You have to basically pull the bell housing off to get it remachined. So it's time to crack into the gearbox oil filter bracket. This will be mounted onto the bell housing of the engine and will hold our cartridge style oil filter. So I just got back from a town run and I have parts. So we've got mounts for the genset, we've got a new fitting so that we can put the second temperature sender in for the oil gallery on the main engine, and we've got some cap screws because I thought that wasn't going to be able to be bolted in, but Burke's already got it bolted in. So what that means is I can then get these pipework fittings that I've just had made. So we've got a filter. I want to go through and show you what we're doing with this stuff. It'll be hot oil out of the sump through the pump, cools down, goes through the two filters and then into the gearbox. So this is a stainless mount at a 4mm plate that Bert put together for us the other day. This is a Parker cartridge filter, oil filter, so used for hydraulics and things like that. This was donated along with a lot of other stuff. This was donated by Daniel Griffith in the States. He's one of our really long time supporters. He's incredible, the amount of stuff that he's helped us with. Hydraulics is one of the areas that he's worked with us extensively, and this is one of the many things that he's sent to the boat. So this is our pre-filter for the gearbox. So this port here connects with the keel cooling port just here. Cold oil comes out here and goes through this filter and into the gearbox to be used. Cold relative. A lot of people have commented actually worrying that the keel cooling is going to be too effective and cool the oil down too much, and therefore we end up with like cold oil going through the gearbox. That's not the case. It's an incredibly effective way of cooling, oils and coolants and things like that using keel cooling. However, we've got really high water temperature where we are. When we go to colder environments, we actually change the grade of oil, so we have a thinner and thinner oil depending on where we go in the world. So yes, it will make the oil quite cold, but it's not going to bring it down. So if we're in, say, 1 degree water, we're not going to have 1 degree oil. It's still going to be fairly warm, but it might knock 30 or 40 degrees off the total temperature. So you've got to remember, you're not taking it down to seawater temperature, you're taking it down to a particular level based on what your gearbox is creating the oil temperature to be in the first place. With people and volunteers coming and going on Brupeg, access to information online is really critical. Things like visa applications, banking from around the world, that sort of thing. Independence, safety, freedom and security is really important to us. And NordVPN is one of the ways that we achieve that on board. We only collaborate with products and services that we trust and believe in on board Brupeg. We're really proud to say this is in collaboration with NordVPN. NordVPN is extremely fast. Something that drives me nuts is waiting around online for stuff to load, and that's not something you have to put up with. NordVPN is incredibly effective, it's value for money, and it's incredibly safe. NordVPN is the safest and easiest way to get around content blocks. It gives you private access to the internet, and it's the fastest in the world. This makes sure crew and volunteers on board Brupeg can access content such as media, Netflix, resources, videos or news that they want without being limited by geo-locking. NordVPN use encryption which hides your IP and online activity. They use cutting edge technology and they operate out of Panama. Panama doesn't have mandatory data retention laws or intelligence sharing, which means they do not sell or track your data. Get 4 months for free on a 2-year plan using the link here or in the description below. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So on the race to get this bad boy started up, we are nearly done. We need to connect this tank that Bert's put together. There's a little outlet at the bottom. We need to connect it onto this little outlet down here. Now the point of this tank is essentially to be the highest part of the engine with water in it. So all of the bubbles that will eventually work its way through the cooling system, there's always going to be bubbles, those will eventually work their way up and end up in this cooling tank. And this cooling tank provides constant pressure to the inlet down here for the water water pump. So this is the water pump on the engine, and it's constantly pulling water in from this side. So if there's a constant supply of water, basically, when I say water I mean coolant, there's a constant supply of coolant basically pushing into that pump. Theoretically, this is never going to be pushing any air around, it's always going to be pushing solid liquid coolant around. So that's why we have the header tank above the engine here. There we go, pipe connected. Time to do some fuel. I'm going to do the easy one first. So this is our fuel return hose. Basically comes out of the fuel system, so you got your fuel pump and you got your turn line from the cylinder head. It goes through, I believe, a one-way valve, check valve here. I've also got a one-way valve here so that it goes off to the tank and can't come back, so therefore we can't have backflow of fuel, and if we have leaking injectors it can't fill the engine up with diesel like we did with the last engine. We didn't have one of these in the return line, so we've put one in now. We're going to go through and put thread sealant on all of these joins, and then we've got a push lock connection. You can see this guy just here that allows us to push some 3/8 10mm hose straight onto that, work our way along. This is the old one that's too short, so we've just replaced this hose. So we've got P-clamps that work their way right the way along back to the tank behind the ball of sunlight coming through the roof there. There's a fuel return hose that goes into the tank at the back there, so we just have to start replicating that. Alright, we're getting really close. So, fuel pipe here needs to be connected, needs to be cut down because it's way too long. It needs to be connected to this guy just there. This is a push lock fitting. If you've never seen these, push locks basically allow you to push the pipe on just like that. You don't need hose clips. Once you pushed it on, you're never getting it off. They're pretty cool. They're a neat wee way to join piping into a hose tail and then onto a thread. And that's what this fitting is here. So if I crack this open, it'll have a taper. See that taper there? There's an equivalent taper at the bottom of that. So these are hydraulic fittings, so they don't need any thread tape or any sealant. You just tighten them up and they will seal. They'll seal 3000 psi of oil pressure, so they're really good seals. This also has a taper inside this thread, and then we've got the push lock hose tail at the end. It's getting very exciting. We've only got fuel pipes, coolant, and a little bit of gearbox oil, and then we can start the engine. Oh, the anticipation! Ignore the old air conditioner that's sitting there, but we've got our hot swap fuel manifold. Comes down runs along here. You can see it's all nicely P-clamped. Comes through here, through this bulkhead, and then if I can spin round, you can follow it all the way along the floorboards there, P-clamped along the side. And it comes up here to our 2 fuel filters on the engine, and that means the fuel side of things is ready to go. Okay, last job before we start putting liquid into the engine is hook up this very last gearbox oil fuel coolant pipe. Right, that's the final one hooked up, and I hate this way that it sits. So it's hooked up there, okay, comes along here, hits the gear lever, and it just looks wrong. I'm going to start the engine up like this just so that I can get it started, but what I want to do is change this into 180 so that it'll sit sort of around this path of the gearbox. It'll do for now, but that definitely needs to be changed within the next few days, I think. Right, I've just put the coolant in the box, hence the green stuff all over the floor. But now it's time to fill this up with water and see if we've got any leaks anywhere. Normally you wouldn't test for leaks once you've put your coolant in. Normally you try and do that beforehand, but I'm pretty confident we're not going to have any leaks. That's why I've just opted to put the coolant in and go for it. Because if we do have leaks, it's only going to be from one of a couple of places, and we can tighten up hose clamps to solve that. Alright, so I don't have distilled water, so I'm using our 5 micron sediment filter that we use to fill the water tanks. I'm going to use the exact same system to fill this. You normally want to put distilled water in. So distilled water is basically steam recondensed into water, so there's just nothing in it but hydrogen and oxygen. That's the best. Don't have it, so just going to be using filtered water.
Probably about 1 hot step, I guess.
I'm assuming so. We've got one leak on the side here. You sort of see that dripping down there. It's that hose clamp. It's a 36 to 39, but it's too tight already, so we need to deal with that, put the next size down. We've changed this guy over and this one here, they were both the same. We changed them over and that leak has stopped, and we can't see leaks anywhere else. We've gone over every pipe, they're all bone dry, so I think we're good. We'll come back in the morning and see if any of it's leaked out. And using antifreeze is really quite a great way of testing for leaks, because you get a big green sort of line where it came out, so it's really obvious and incredibly hard to hide. So yeah, partly why I wanted to put the antifreeze in to do this test. We're getting pretty close to being able to start up. The engine is ready to go. We'll walk through all of our pre-start checklist with you, so you got an idea as to what we're doing. Yes, we know you've got low voltage. We've got radios with low voltage that keep telling us so that we can communicate around the boat. Everyone's got their assigned jobs. Time to get stuck into it. Over the back of the engine room, got a wee bit of a tidy up, but we've got a temporary system. We've got our 12 volt fuel pump hooked up, pulling from this tank. It's coming through here, going up to our hot swap fuel filters, and then it'll come from here down the fuel line, work its way all the way forward and go up into the fuel pump. It's all the fuel filters and then the fuel pump. Should we go through this then?
We've got a little organisational thing going on. Have you gone through emergency, anything that could happen? Runaway motor, we talked about.
Yep. Put a thing over the air intake, shut the air off. Yeah, fuel leak.
Is the motor strapped down?
Motor strapped down, so it's not going to go anywhere. So I've got my engine first start checklist, which is a lot of like checking for oil leaks and all sorts of rubbish. So obviously basic stuff like oil levels, coolant levels, gearbox oil, hydraulic oil, fuel pumps, some known possible hydraulic leaks, confirming some electrics, start the engine, and then a whole bunch of post-engine checks.
Nice.
But that's not really procedures, that's just stuff that I need to know about for the engine, so we need to go through and talk about procedures and what happens if, type stuff.
So does everyone feel ready? Like everyone's happy, and are you happy with everything, Duncan? Yeah.
For the top, yeah.
For
Where we are right
start.
now, yeah.
Great. You?
Yeah, I think everything's done.
I think the only being on board that might not be ready for this is the cat.
Yeah. Didn't you give her the briefing?
I just did actually.
Oh, okay.
Is that still
working?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go around. Do you want to just follow behind and we'll just make sure everything's double checking what I'm checking? Pre-start checklist. We'll start off. Engine oil.
We've been here before.
Can you
I feel.
record? I'll just. Okay, so our marks are high and low. So we've got, yep, we're just slightly above full. Okay, you happy with that?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got 2 notches, low and high. We're just above high. See that there?
Looks good. Yep.
So that should go down as the keel cooling takes up some capacity. So we need a little bit more coolant. Alright. So this coolant will go down as the motor starts running. This coolant's going to drop down because there's going to be lots of air pockets right now in the motor and wherever else. Right. I'm not going to put the lid on this because that's going to start disappearing as soon as this pipe here starts feeding the water pump. It's going to start pushing water through the engine, and then we're going to end up filling up all the air pockets and things like this, and all of the excess water that goes into the engine is going to come from this tank. So I'm going to keep this open. I'm just going to keep piling water in for the first sort of 5 minutes or so until we can get this thermostat open, and it's not using any more water. I'll have to just keep monitoring that. So for now, coolant level is okay. So our hydraulic oil tank down here. So just get a light going. Okay, so you see we've got plenty of oil. We've got about half a tank roughly of oil, which is plenty for this system. Over the back we've got a temporary fuel pump pulling out of that tank. Just a little on-off switch down here. We've got our fuel filters. I'm in pretty restricted space in case you're wondering. Fuel filters here, so we can turn these on off. We can see fuel pressure. We can see that these guys are filling up, but what we're trying to do is get fuel to the very top here to make sure we've even got a big air bubble. So I'm just going to turn it on so we can see some fuel. It'll be coming up that cylinder. There we go. So that's as full as we want to get that. So to put these guys together, you've got a spring that sits on top like that, and then this sits on top of that, screws the whole thing down. Now a trick for these things is make sure they're cranked up incredibly tight, because fuel pressure is held by rubber O-ring. If you don't have them tight, you're going to get sprayed fuel everywhere. So now that we've got this full of fuel, we've got the lid cranked up. I cranked it up with a big spanner so it's nice and tight. When I turn it on, this pressure gauge here should come up. There we go, like that. So it's bouncing a little bit because we've got air still in the system, but we know that we've got plenty of pressure at this point going forward, so we'll work our way down the fuel pressure loop all the way to the engine. Just like bleeding a fuel injector, we crack that off, that's enough, just let that out, and then I'll turn the fuel pressure on, and as soon as you see it dribble out, we'll crack it back on. There we go, it's almost coming down now.
There we go, I think we're there. Oh, hang on. Yep, no, I think we're good.
Yeah, there's still a bit of air coming out.
Yeah. Wiggle the hose, just give the hose a wiggle.
Yeah. It's getting better.
Still doesn't do that.
Yep, none of that now.
I think
lock her up.
Oh, hang on, there's a bit.
Keep going until you got rid of that.
Do we have another bleeding thing?
I think we might be there.
Yep.
You guys right?
Yep.
Rightio, so the next thing we've got level, I'm going to keep that Cummins coolant level check on there until I'm satisfied that it's full. Next thing is confirm 24 volt system running, confirm the gauge is running, and start engine. So 24 volt system, do you want to just flip that over? Okay, so the system should be live.
So that'll be 24 volts to the available to the starter motor.
Alright, so now we've got, okay, so 24 volt system running, confirm the gauge is running.
Yep, so we've got the gauges, that brings up the red arc gauges.
Alright, do you want to start the engine circuit?
Yep. So this enables the engine starting circuits and also the connection through to Brupeg.
Alright, so I think we're ready to start. Ready? Okay, here we go, starting.
Looks good. Can you tell me when we're midships? Do you want me to switch to anchor?
Okay, anchor up.
Should be powered off.
Okay, anchor down. So it's running. We can't necessarily find any problems. We've had a couple of minor oil leaks. We had one just here which is just tightening the fitting up. We've got a couple of things like we started off, we had a little bit of an oil, exhaust leak, but that was just again tightening up a clamp. That wasn't really anything. Let's talk about the smoke screen that we put up. This is not for defensive purposes or to make a quick getaway from the marina. This is actually normal for this engine when it's completely stone cold and we haven't run it for a long time. So you've got lots of old diesel sitting in the cylinders, the exhaust, the injectors, that sort of thing. You can see after a matter of seconds it clears up. And a good example of this is when you're a hot engine running on the dyno at full load. Here you can see how clear it runs. And the stubby wheel exhaust will be extended higher soon. Hydraulics wise, we've had two very minor leaks on the far side, over here. In our autopilot system we had a couple of little leaks over here. We were hard to see, but they're tightened up. We had a little bit of a leak there. We've got that monitored, we've tightened that up, we think it'll be okay. Let's just clear everything off so that we can see any new oil. The actual engine itself is running really sweet, which we knew it would. We can't see any oil or fuel leaks or water leaks. The gearbox seems to be functioning fine. So we're running at about 25 psi oil pressure at idle and about 175 psi when we engage the clutch. Want to go through and just give it a couple of minutes and check oil levels to see if we need to top up.
Yep.
So that we can leave the dock, we need to finish our chock fast mounts. This was awesome. And so we can stay for extended periods off the dock, we'd like to introduce you to our Bouge RV solar system.
But that's coming up in the next week or so. Thank you to everyone who supported our GoFundMe, our incredible Patreons, and everyone else who donated to get Billy McConnell, our Cummins 855 started. Thanks to Carl, who was so open to make running on vegetable oil a real possibility. Thank you to everyone who helped from the bottom of our hearts. May it power us across many oceans and help us carry our supporters and crew to some amazing places. Thank you for watching. See you soon.